Well, hello and welcome to episode 494 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I am Carlos, and in this week's show we've got some 747 news. It's been a bad week for United Airways, or airlines even, and Antarctic runway repairs, and a rooftop hotel pool at JFK. In the military news this week, we've got a Korean espionage and the F-35's under Northern Lights. So joining me this week is the guy that always presses all those correct buttons in the correct order at the correct time of day.
No.
It's Matt Smith.
Yeah, no, I get it right like once a month, something like that, definitely. Hello. How are we?
Oh, how are we? Great manufacturer of mobile phones there. I'm very well. Haven't seen you for ages, Matt.
I'm not even dignifying that with any form of response. You should be ashamed of yourself.
No, you came and saw me for lunch this afternoon. It was rather eventful, I will say, our lunch, the lunch visits.
Well, yes, indeed. It's, as I say, although you've been a bit busy this last week, you haven't been able to squeeze me into your hectic schedule.
I know. It's funny. Obviously, being for the company for a short time, it won't be a year until August this year that I've been there. But I'm still finding out when the busy times are and the busy times are not, which generally tends to be the run up to Christmas when it's quiet. But no, it's very busy now, which is good because that means there's money in the pot to pay the old wages each month.
Well, true, yes. It's very important, yes, absolutely.
But welcome, Matt, as always. Good to see you in the studio, ready for the evening.
It's Matt plural this week.
Yes, but more on that in a moment. Nev is unfortunately not with us this week, unfortunately. He is sunning himself in warmer climes, enjoying himself with Mrs. Nev and a bottle of Pinot, no doubt, at the moment. But hopefully he'll be back next week to regale us of his stories of BA woes. Well, hopefully not woes.
No, hopefully no woes. That's what we're after.
Yes. But joining us this week, he's back again. Good to see him on the show. Our fourth member of the team, the hosting team, and he's back from a little trip to our side of the pond. Armando, hello.
Hello, team. Happy to be here again. No jet lag whatsoever. I think we've done the trip to the UK so many times now that we just kind of plan ahead. But, man, it is officially summertime here in North Carolina. I think it's already almost 80-something degrees outside, and I took the biplane up today, and it was a gorgeous day to fly.
Yeah, we're lucky. We're lucky to see the video.
Is it getting sort of a little bit more sort of spring-like in terms of like temperatures and things now, Armando?
We had a couple days of, I think, was what was spring. Now we just jumped straight into summer.
Right. Okay. just cut out the middleman, straight in.
Yeah.
Sounds like the future.
Good to see you, Armando. It was also very good to see you as well. Last weekend. Great to see you here in the UK, and we got up to some very exciting things last Saturday, but more on that in a few episodes' time.
Yeah, we don't want to give anything away, but it was really, really, really nice to come back to the UK. I love seeing y'all's faces, and maybe I guess in a couple weeks we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we did there in the UK, but I took my whole family over there because I felt like they needed to see the Cotswolds specifically, because I love the Cotswolds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really pretty.
Very beautiful.
Also joining us this week, he's lurking in the background there, making sure that we follow the strict guidelines and show notes that's set out by him for us this week.
Keep
Nick Codling.
Keep making these show notes, which I pay no attention to, by the way.
Well, there's some special notes in there for you this week, Matt.
Yeah, at the moment, genuinely, I can't get into it at the moment, so we may be a bit screwed all ways round at the moment.
Never mind.
Nick, I have to ask, how was the journey home at the weekend? Because obviously you had, quite a long distance to travel here.
Yes, I drove through all of the counties of England. We were just saying before we went on air that as I was coming past Heathrow, I was sort of stuck in a bit of traffic on the M25 and literally drove past the end of the runway where Armando and his family were taxiing to take off back to America, which was quite ironic.
Oh, did you wave at each other? How nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Armando was too busy supping on the champagne there in...
it was one in seat 1A, dear?
Oh no.
No.
We were in 68, 68 E through J.
Oh, you didn't treat us. They didn't offer you an upgrade in Armando.
No, not at all. Plus, like I said, I had the whole family. We did have the entire row, which was nice. The whole middle bit, with the four seats in the middle.
Yeah.
On a, was it 777-200? I think is what American flies. It's a direct flight from Charlotte, so it's really convenient.
Yeah.
Well,
is that the one I did?
Yeah, same flights.
Yeah, it was
same as
nice.
me. Yeah, same flight number, I think, actually.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So we've got a special super sub joining us this evening on the show. He is one of our resident Airbus pilots who we always like to get on the show when we have a splattering of Airbus stories for our commercial news segment. Because
you make that sound like it's the only reason he's here is because there may be a vague reference to an Airbus product. So I know what we'll do is we'll wheel out poor old Matt from his sick bed. Lovely.
And yes, as Matt just said just then, he is he's not in his sick bed, but he is recovering, bless him. But he's great to have you back on the show. Matt, welcome on.
Lovely, thanks very much. Yeah, always a pleasure to be on. Interesting week. So yesterday was my 17th anniversary at the airline that I'm at, and I spent it as a temporary quadruped. Had a full hip replacement on last Thursday evening. So recovering from that, which is why I'm not down in the studio. I thought slippery patio, grass, gravel,
bit risky,
into the shed, maybe a bit risky. So I'm in the kitchen studio today.
Ooh,
nice.
Haven't heard that word for a while, Matt.
No, not since the days of up the road. Yes, goodness.
Yeah.
Studio, very good. So we're going to say a very special welcome to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. Going to say first hello to Captain Cruz in there at the beginning of the chat room chat there. Hobby Time, hello to you. Mazoos, our local listener Mazoos, hello to you. Alan is also in there. Hello, Alan. Good to see you. David Michael, he's heading off to the gym apparently. 24 degrees Celsius there in Adelaide, Australia. 5 a.m.
I could say, pick up a donut on your way through, would you? That would be great.
David. We have got... let me scroll down. Here we go. Richard Adams. Hello to Richard. Alpha Juliet. Hello to you as well. Stephen Ivy, one of our regular guest hosts who comes on every now and again. Stephen, good to see you in there. Tanya.
One of our regular guest hosts who comes on every now and again.
Yes. Well, you know what I mean. We need to get him on. We need to get him on again.
We do.
Stephen's always good to have on. We've got Richard E. Flag. Good to see you on there as well. And my camera's gone all blurry, so I'm just going to do that quickly.
Wow.
Good to see you on there. Sturman, hello to you as well. Rose Newton, hello, Rose. Haven't seen you in the chat room before. We have got Aaron P. Bill's in there. Good to see Bill. He's got his grandson visiting. Could we say hi to Griffin? So if we could say hello to Griffin.
Hi, Griffin. No, just me. Okay, right.
Hello, Griffin. I said hello, Griffin. Rose
it's going
Newton,
well. This is very seamless.
Apparently, Rose Newton's name is Reese. Hopefully, I've pronounced that right. What's your favourite aircraft? Mine is a Eurofighter Typhoon. He says. Well, I mean, there's no question about what my favourite aircraft is because that blade
an L10,
comes from
11.
the aircraft.
Lovely.
Matt's favourite, Matt Smith's favourite aircraft is obviously the 757.
Is it heckers like?
Anyway,
I nearly said a very bad word then.
Masha's also in there as well. Hello to you, Masha. Good to see you in the chat room, and welcome one and all. Thanks for joining in on this Wednesday night for our live show. Don't forget, if you are listening to our voices on the audio show, don't forget to check us out on YouTube just to see how stunningly gorgeous we all are. We're here every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, and just make sure you hit that subscribe and bell icon to be notified when Matt has pressed the live button on the computer. Yes, there we go. So, commercial news. We've got loads of military news, we've got loads of, and we've also got a very special second interview from our trip to the Drone Summit in Dublin coming up as well later on in the show. So, time for some commercial news, guys and girls. Let's press that button, Matt.
The captain has turned on the seatbelt light. Please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
I love how in the chat room, Alan White is asking Matt, how many hips do you have? How many hips do you have?
Well, just the mandatory 2.
So first story this week is...
I was going to say, you should see him on the dance floor.
Absolutely. He's a machine now, literally.
He'll be running to the flight deck now.
Yeah, absolutely. How often do you have to change the batteries, Matt, just out of interest?
Well, I did ask if they could do something that would improve my golf swing in there.
Right, so, okay. It's like, I guess it depended on how good it was before.
Exactly, yeah.
Anyway, sorry, off topic. Sorry, carry on, Carlos.
It's like the old joke, isn't it? Will I still be a concert pianist? Yeah.
Yeah. Were you before? No. Anyway, sorry, Carlos, carry on.
Anyway, carry on. Thank you. Thanks, Smith. Aerotime.aero. This one is from Boeing and Spirit Aerosystems open talks to remerge an Airbus A220 factory fate. Boeing and Spirit Aerosystems have both confirmed that talks have begun to potentially remerge the companies. Boeing believes that regenerating the companies would strengthen aviation safety. However, both firms admitted that the talks are very much in the early stages and there was no guarantee an agreement could be reached. Back in 2005, Boeing decided to outsource some of its manufacturing operations under the belief it would reduce costs and increase production efficiency. Yeah. Spirit Aerosystems was formed through the sale of Boeing, which is a division which has responsibility for crafting the fuselage of the 737s and 787s, passing to the new entity. However, the development has raised concerns over Spirit Aerosystems' A220 factory in Belfast, as it would seem unlikely Boeing would want to continue wing production for its competitor. One possibility being put forward is Airbus purchasing the facility, according to Reuters. And they've been working closely, they said, with Spirit Aerosystems and its leadership to strengthen the quality of the commercial aircraft that we build together. They said, we confirm that the collaboration has resulted in preliminary discussions about making Spirit Aerosystems part of Boeing again. Boeing said in a statement on March the 1st. The plane maker added, we believe that the regeneration of Boeing and Spirit Aerosystems manufacturing operations would further strengthen the aviation safety, improve quality, and serve the interests of our customers, employees, and shareholders. So Spirit Aerosystems also announced the development on March the 1st, confirming discussions had opened over a possible acquisition. No assurances can be given that a definitive agreement will be entered into, any transaction will be consummated, or the timing, terms, or conditions of any such transaction, Spirit Aerosystems said. The news comes as Boeing still looks to find ways to rebuild trust and improve safety after an Alaska Airlines plug door, as we all know, separated from a MAX 9 back in January the 5th this year. Since the incident, the FAA and Boeing customers have demanded the plane maker takes accountability to find ways to rectify shortfalls in its safety procedures. Further pressure is building on Boeing following the Alaska Airlines incident after the US Justice Department confirmed it is looking into the incident as well, and also whether it violated its 2021 deferred prosecution agreement with Boeing following the MAX crashes back in 2018 and 2019. The story goes on, but it's interesting, and it would be a shame if obviously people were to lose jobs because of the merger in Belfast, where the production, the wings are made for the 220s. But yeah, I think Boeing definitely need to up their game.
Well, just for a little reference here, so they're talking about how Spirit basically spun off from Boeing however many years ago, but Spirit basically makes parts of the fuselage of the 737, the 787, the flight decks of nearly all Boeing aircraft, and then fuselage sections for the Airbus A350. So they are actually and the company is split up into fuselages, propulsions, and it's like a third. There's a third section of the company, but yeah, they make A320 parts, they make A220 parts, the C series, 737s, and of course they make all the military parts for the P8 Poseidon. That's basically the 737. They make KC-46 sections. So I would love to get Nick Camacho's take on this, because he lives there in Wichita. Spirit Aerosystems is one of the, if not the biggest employer, I guess maybe outside of Textron, there in Wichita, Kansas. But this is probably one, I don't know, extreme effort for Boeing to get a hold on quality control again.
Alan White says in the chat room, he says he didn't realise the A220 wings were made in Belfast. The wings are specifically made in Belfast, Northern Ireland, in a dedicated A220 wing manufacturing facility run by Global Tier 1 Aerostructures. They're a manufacturer of Spirit Aerosystems. So yeah, they are. I didn't realise that actually until we had this story come up that they made the wings for those in Belfast. But yeah, learn something new every day. So Matt, you've got the next story, all about Korean Airlines.
Indeed. We'll go straight into it, shall we? Simpleflying.com is the source for this one. And the headline is that the UK will regain passenger Boeing 747 flights with Korean Air return. Korean Air has a daily passenger flight to Heathrow using a Boeing 777-300ER, along with a frequent dedicated freighter operation using the 777F and the 747-8F. The 777 will continue until June 25th, with the 747-8I taking over on the 26th of June. It'll be the first time the SkyTeam airline has used the 747 to Heathrow since 2019, although it could still reverse the decision. It will primarily operate to capture the peak summer demand. The final flight is on October the 26th, when Northern Airlines switch to winter schedules. The 777-300ER will return the next day. Korean Air 747-8s have 368 seats, providing an additional 91 seats per departure. This is not about more premium capacity. There are fewer seats in first class and only 6 more in business, but it's all about economy, with 38% more available. Like many other airlines, Korean Air avoids Russian airspace, with its Heathrow flights covering approximately 20% more distance than they did. This means longer flight times, increasing fuel burn, en route navigation charges and emissions. The schedule will be as follows. So it'll leave Seoul to Heathrow under flight number Kilo Echo 907. It's going to be 10:50. It leaves, arriving at 17:20. It'll be a total of 14 hours and 30 minutes in one block. And then the Heathrow to Seoul is going to be around about 12 hours. Going to be 12 hours and 40 odd minutes. In July and August, Korean Air's 9 747-8s in passenger configuration will be used on 4 routes from sorry, I'm trying to read it from my phone. From Seoul to Atlanta daily, Honolulu daily, Heathrow daily, and New York JFK daily to 2 daily. Interestingly, Heathrow will be the only European destination to see its passenger jumbos. Cirium data shows that Frankfurt and SkyTeam's Paris Charles de Gaulle historically have had more services by its 747s, -400s and -8s combined than Heathrow. This year there'll be 1 passenger 747 takeoff from the UK against 31 4 years ago. All were by British Airways, 27 departures from Heathrow, and Virgin 4 from Manchester and Gatwick. Korean Air's 747-8s flew to Heathrow for 8 months in 2019. Additionally, El Al scheduled 11 747-400 flights to the UK's busiest airport that year. The last of its 747s was retired in November 2019.
Do you know what? I completely forgot that Korean Airlines had the Dash 8 Intercontinental 74s. Totally forgot they got those. They got 9 of those.
Indeed.
Lufthansa have got some as well. There's not many airlines that fly the Dash 8.
No, indeed. The story does go on, actually, is saying that it's not all good news. Sadly, the Qatar had just retired their last 747 freighter. The Queen of the Skies, this is aerotimes.aero, this one, Queen of the Skies, Qatar Airways Cargo bids farewell to its last Boeing 747F. The last Boeing 747 freighter operated by Qatar Airways Cargo has flown for the final time after arriving at Doha Hamad International Airport in Qatar. The Boeing 747F, known as the Queen of the Skies, made its journey to Doha from Barcelona on the 1st of March 2024 after a flight lasting over 5 hours. The 747F, registered as Alpha 7 Bravo Golf Bravo, made its final touchdown for Qatar Cargo Airlines at 1500 local time. Oh, so sort of mixed story there.
Yeah, just like Ellen says, it's going to be nice to see the 747s at Heathrow. I know for me, since 2005 that I lived over there, that was just one of the coolest parts of being at Heathrow, is watching all the BA 747s and the Korean and every other airline that was flying them into Heathrow. It was such a staple of Heathrow, you know.
I'm quite fortunate living close to Stansted. I still get to relatively regularly see the 74-8s coming over for Atlas, so they still bring those into Stansted. But like you say, not many airlines with them now, so always nice to, as you say, see a passenger one entering our airspace, even if it's only very infrequently.
Just a little side note before we move on, just looking at some press releases from Korean Airlines. Apparently they're going to phase out all their 747-8s by 2031. Okay. They've also said they're going to get rid of their A380 fleet by 2026. So they're intended on keeping the 74s a lot longer than the 380s.
Interesting.
Moving on, next story. Matt C., you've got this one.
Yes, Ukraine hopes to restart commercial flights from Kyiv as soon as possible. Having ceased all commercial flights from its airports when Russia invaded the country in February 22, Ukraine's plans for the restart of commercial passenger operations from its main airport in the capital city of Kyiv are reported to be gathering pace and getting closer to reality. This comes from aerotime.aero. It says, inspired by Israelis leading continuing passenger flights despite being involved in a conflict, Ukraine has begun talks with the European Union and US authorities over the restart of commercial flights from its Kyiv International Airport. According to reports published by the Kyiv Post newspaper, the vital negotiations have begun, setting Ukraine on a path to seeing both its own airlines and those from other countries return to the skies over the capital city. These reports cite Alexander Kruvakov, the Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister for Reconstruction and Minister for Community, Territory and Infrastructure Development, who is reported to have made the return of commercial air services a key objective for the country in 2024. In addition to consulting with the EU and the US on any proposed restart, it is understood that Ukraine has consulted with the Israeli Civil Aviation Authority. Those talks have been commenced to assist the Ukrainians in getting a better understanding of best practices for the safe airport operation in Kyiv while it remains under the threat of hostile rocket attacks. For any commercial airlines to restart passenger flights from Kyiv or any other airport in the country, the Ukrainian government would also have to provide guidance on how the airport would run while under military control. Such guidance would have to provide comprehensive details regarding a full risk assessment, approved safe aircraft arrival and departure paths, and timelines for the regulatory approvals required. Above all else, any such plan would require the approval of aircraft and airline insurers. While discussions are reported to have opened with insurers in London on the issue, no overall timeline has been confirmed for when commercial flights might begin from Kyiv. Given that safety will be the primary factor as to whether any services will begin anytime soon, Ukrainian authorities will have to persuade both its homegrown airlines and foreign carriers that operating to and from Kyiv remains safe. It is thought by analysts that foreign airlines will require a great deal of confidence building before they consider even sending their passenger aircraft into Ukrainian airspace, which has remained closed since the start of the conflict, even to overflying aircraft. Despite this, the Ukrainians remain upbeat on this point. Several European airlines are very interested and willing to say they'll be amongst the first to do so, says Alexander Kubrakov. I do not wish to name them at this point. Going in favour of the potential restart of commercial passenger flights to Kyiv, the general security threat of missile strikes in Kyiv has been reduced in recent weeks. Indeed, even Ukraine's President Zelensky, his chief of staff, has gone on record stating that the country has become progressively stronger in the last 12 months. Notwithstanding this, it will be crucial for the US and EU authorities to be on board any proposals before any passenger-carrying flights depart from Kyiv Airport. With a crucial general election approaching in the US later this year in 2024, any changes in the country's foreign policy concerning supporting Ukraine could also hamper such attempts. In 2022, Ukraine's national carrier, Ukraine International Airlines, ceased all operations, and many of its aircraft were flown out of the country in the days leading up to Russia's invasion for safety. However, charter airline SkyUp Airlines has continued flights with its fleet of 7 Boeing 737s, albeit from other countries and under wet lease agreements with other carriers. And as a side note, apparently Ryanair have been vocal in stating their desire to get back into Ukraine as soon as possible. So, yeah, interesting story. And something that Alan White will be very aware of is the issue here is, of course, it's not just airlines that own these aircraft. So many airlines, a majority or certainly a significant amount of their aircraft will be leased from a leasing company. So even if the airline wants to fly in there, they'd have to have permission from the owners of the aircraft, which obviously could be a different company in a different country. So there's a lot of hurdles to get through, and I think this is just at the very early stages.
Is this sort of, you know, the question I've got on this, I suppose, is this the right time to start this? I mean, I feel like it's a long way from being over. Which would be my sort of alarm. I mean, all right, so they're saying that, you know, missiles flying around and stuff is not happening as much as it has been. But that's not to say that they've stopped. You know, it's the language being used here is sort of very careful, if you see what I mean. It's just like as a nervous passenger, I guess I'm asking the question. I don't know if it's safe to do so yet.
I think there's probably two things here. One is going to be that the expected time for this to happen. As you know, anything dealing with different authorities or different countries takes a very long time. So maybe they're planning to start now and assuming this is going to take a year or so to get permission, maybe. And this isn't going to be normal passengers that are going to Kyiv on holiday. This is going to be repatriation and people getting in and out of the country, probably for vital reasons. Or
business as
exactly.
Well.
So, yeah, that's probably what they're taking into it. But like I say, it's going to be very difficult. Armando can probably shed more light on operating with a joint, or certainly an airport that's under military control. It's going to become very different. I fly into Tel Aviv myself, obviously not at the moment. And, you know, there's many restrictions and routings that we have, and they have certain arrival routes and things if there's been reported activity in certain areas, so that they can route everybody the other way or things like that. So they'll have a huge amount of procedures, which again will take a long time. But Armando, from your military knowledge, it's going to be a huge amount of hoops to jump through here.
Yeah, there's a long history of civilian aircraft going in and out of combat zones, or at least contested zones. And, you know, we've had some pretty famous points in history where we've established air bridges, basically between two rival factions or something like that, whatever you want to call it. But something like this, you can rest assured that you do get an advantage in having military control, in that there's probably coordination. Believe it or not, you know, I've mentioned it a couple times. militaries talk, governments talk, even when they're at war with each other. And something like this, it would be uh, coordinated between the Ukrainians and the Russians that, hey, we're establishing this air bridge. Here's the flight schedules. Here's, the parameters that we've set. I would venture to say that the Russians would have a hand in the coordination. The problem is that Russian military is decentralized, as in, Moscow has its regions and its regions controls certain parts of the military, but one of the survivability functions of the Russian military is that it's decentralized control, where units can operate almost autonomously. That's where the problems happen. Is you have a rogue unit that is just operating off the reservation, and that's where things like the Malaysian airliner happen, and there's lots of historical incidents where civilian airliners have been shot down inadvertently. The Korean, I think it was Korean 007 or something like that, that was shot down. It's just there is a lot of risk, but at the same time, it's having an air bridge to somewhere like Kyiv right now is so important that I'm sure they're wanting to get that going again as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think it was that DHL, wasn't there, Armando? That A300 DHL that was hit by a ground to air.
Sam, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm worried about. You see, is like I absolutely agree that we need things to sort of get back to normal for whatever the new normal is, I guess, as soon as possible. But I'm worried it's not the right time, if you see what I mean, for doing that when there is still so much uncertainty.
Yeah, I'm going to stick to Malta.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Carlos. Your input is always greatly appreciated.
Stay safe. Stay to safe coast.
Right. Okay.
Safe countries, I think. Armando, you've got a kind of a trip down memory lane for your story.
Yeah, I know we usually do current events, but I found this story on airportspotting.com. I thought it was really interesting because I actually didn't know about this. There was apparently Delta Airlines back in the 60s and the 70s bought some C-130s, or technically they weren't C-130s. They were actually Lockheed L-100s. In the military, if you fly the C-130, you are able to get a type rating that is actually the L-100 or the L-382. Two different versions of the civilian designation for a C-130. Obviously, most C-130s were operated by the militaries, have been operated by the military since their inception in the late 50s, early 60s. But in 1966, Delta Airlines actually was the first commercial operator in the world to operate the Lockheed Hercules. It took delivery of 3 L-100-10s in pure freighter configuration. And these aircraft, as I don't know if Matt has the pictures to post up, but they actually flew in full Delta colors, including the widget and the Delta stripe, at least for the 70s. The reason they did this is they needed a way to carry cargo and some bulk loads around its own network, both on behalf of commercial operators, but for its own maintenance needs. If you imagine, or if you think back to the 60s and the 70s, that's when we were having the 707s, the 737s were starting to come out, the Lockheed L-1011 was kind of going out, starting to come on board in the 70s, right, Carlos? Especially Delta Airlines.
Yeah.
So the Delta Airlines needed to get all these parts around its own network. And of course, the C-130 was perfect for shipping things like aircraft engines. Delta was already using some old C-46s, so it's kind of like a DC-3, similar. It had been using that as freighters for the last decade or something like that before they got these C-130s. They did send some of the Hercules off to get modified into a -20 configuration, which was a 8-foot stretch in front of the engines. If you kind of compare some of the pictures, you'll notice at the end that the fuselage is about a little bit longer. Anyway, Delta was pretty proud, as in their own words, to operate these. They were one of the only civilian airlines to operate such a large cargo aircraft at the time. And more so, they were built in Marietta, Georgia, which is not too far from Delta's headquarters in Atlanta. So there you go. Pretty interesting. They only ever had 4 of them. They were all sold in the 90s. Or actually, they were sold in the mid 70s, and all 4 aircraft operated well into the 90s with different operators. But I just thought that was a really unique thing, a little bit of military and commercial coming together.
No, Nick, we can't have one in PTUK colours. Although they do look really cool in the Delta. A few people in the chat room have commented how nice it looks in the Delta livery. And it is quite different to see that style of aircraft with a commercial airliner's livery.
Yeah, there's actually quite a few still operating today, civilian C-130s or L-382s.
It's very good. It's very good, though. I expect Nev would love to see one with the BA livery on. Now, that would be quite special to see that.
Well, there's always Photoshop.
Always Photoshop. There is always. Don't go down the Photoshop route, Armando. Blimey.
No.
Yeah, you guys are good at that.
Yeah,
you guys are good at that over there in the UK.
It'll generate a PR disaster that nobody ever thought was possible on what was supposed to be a good news story, and just chaos ensues. But anyway, there we go. All part of the fun.
We'll talk about all that on the after show.
Yeah, why not?
So, next story comes to us from theguardian.com, and it's safe to say, for those of you who may follow the various news wires in the aviation industry, will know it's been a very, very busy kind of last sort of week or so for United Airlines. This one, the first one, is the Boeing 737 MAX. It's a MAX 8 that ran off the taxiway in Texas onto a grassy area. The United Airlines aircraft ran off the runway in Houston, Texas, last Friday. The latest incident in a week of safety issues for the airline, all involving Boeing aircraft. But anyway, Armando will probably have something to say about this. It's not, he'll mention it. But this included the entire falling off, a 777, and the flaming engine, and allegedly stuck controls. The 737 MAX 8, the first one we're talking about here, carrying 160 passengers and 6 crew, was landing at George Bush Intercontinental Airport on Friday when it left the paved surface and entered the grass while exiting the runway for the gate, officials said in an interview. In a separate statement, United Airlines said that after landing, United Airlines UA 2477 exited the runway onto a grassy area. Customers deplaned using the air stairs, being bussed to the terminal. They did say as well that all the passengers were safe. Obviously, the main gear collapsed on that United Airlines aircraft as well. And there was obviously the incident as well this week regarding the wheel falling off. I know that hit the news quite heavily, including a few cars quite heavily, it's safe to say, in the car park. With damage. And then we also had another incident, I think it was 3 in a row for United, with the hydraulic line coming for breaking on one of the landing gears after taking off. That was a 777 as well, I think, Armando, wasn't it, that had that issue. So yeah, it's been a busy old week for United Airlines. And thoughts, Armando, because obviously everyone's jumping on the look, another Boeing bandwagon, but we all know this is probably not the case.
Well, I mean, specifically, you saw, Carlos, once in this... Hold on. Let me rephrase that. Carlos, you do know how easy it is to over-control a 737.
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, hello. Oh.
And...
You have my attention.
Yeah, well, I guess we can't really expand on that until later, but you may be able to fly the airplane just fine, but you do not stop flying the airplane until it's come to a full stop. And on the ground, especially in these large transport category aircraft, things can go really wrong really fast. What I am curious is they taxied all the way to the end of the runway. They were landing on 27 left, I believe, and that's a pretty long runway there in Houston, and this was the last taxiway. So I don't know if the numbers, they must have been going fast. We're gonna see from an investigation, but they essentially had a little bit of extra speed. It was a wet runway. They had a 90-degree turn. It was the last taxiway before the grass anyway. Yeah. So I don't know what they were. I don't know what happened here, but they used the entire runway and were trying to get it stopped while in the middle of a turn. So that's just not going to work out well.
There was actually, for those of you who follow VAS Aviation on YouTube, there was the recording from this as well. I don't know if you heard it, Armando.
I haven't listened to it.
Flight crew. It's only a very short recording. But yeah, I think they were slightly taken by surprise when they sort of had the runoff onto the grass. But
I mean, it doesn't. I'm looking at the ILS, the approach plate for 27 at Houston, and it's a 10,000-foot runway. So you got to something went wrong in the crew.
So I watched the Blancalerio video earlier, and he was explaining that with the layout of the airport, it looks as though the United hub was better accessed by taking that final taxiway. So the captain requested to do a full rollout, to which the tower replied that he could, as long as he kept his speed up due to the inbound traffic behind him. So it sounds as though there might have been a little bit of, okay, we need to kind of, hurry things along here rather than taking the high-speed exit. And then obviously that then may have caught him out there at the end there.
I was going to say it's something that you do sometimes see when on the line, even myself, if we're told to roll out, or maybe the further down exit is better for our parking stand, they say something like exactly like that: keep your speed up, there's an aircraft behind. There's a real urge to comply with that, and sometimes you have to make sure that you are at the correct speed before you vacate. So I don't know what it would be on the max, but we would say for 90-degree turn on the Airbus, it would be 15 knots to make that turn. If it was a much sharper turn at 90 degrees, even 10 knots. So it would really depend on what the limitation on the max. I would imagine it's similar. But sometimes it can be a case of catching you out as well, because you let it roll out, and you think, oh, I've got 10,000 feet here, and then suddenly it can come up on you quite quickly. So, as they tried to make that turn, maybe they lost control. But, not to speculate, but if that's what they were told by ATC, then it sounds like it could be, they were under some sort of pressure to get off the runway as quick as possible.
And I totally get that, right? As you say, it's like the people who are, I mean, I won't say in charge of you, because obviously you're in charge of, at the end of the day, you have ultimate responsibility for the aircraft that you're tearing away. But if somebody who's been giving you instructions and giving you permission to land and all that kind of thing, if they say to you, it's in not quite so many words, but essentially, can you get off the runway as soon as you can, please? Because there's somebody behind you, then I get why you'd be thinking, right, okay, and let's get out of the way as soon as we can, type thing. It's
that's not an unusual call though. Like if that air traffic controller wasn't being rogue or say anything, that is very common. And then we have for high intensity runway operations, we have limited runway occupational time. So there'll be certain places like Heathrow, for example, there'll be notes in their minimum runway occupancy time, which means permanently you have to get off the runway as quick as possible.
Right, yeah.
And you'll see some crew or some airlines, they'll land and they'll just bumble down the runway for ages. And I've had to go around several times because an aircraft's taken a long time to vacate. So
right.
The air traffic controllers do have a responsibility to give you that awareness, because sometimes, I've landed at Amsterdam on 18 right, which is a very long runway, but often there's someone right behind you, so you come off at the first turning and then have to taxi for ages. But sometimes they'll do the opposite. They'll say, there's no one behind you, can roll out. So then they're saying the opposite. Like, you don't have to rush. Don't worry. You can come off further down. So it can work both ways. But it's certainly not an unusual call to get something like vacate the runway as quick as possible.
Any thoughts on this, Armando?
No, I mean, Matt has more experience than I do with this. It is very common here in the U.S. too, and especially because I think we tend to pack more airplanes into our major hub airports than you guys do over there. We've talked about it so many times on the show where, I mean, we have 3 aircraft that are cleared to land onto the same runway, and they're all 4 or 5 miles apart. That's really common here. I know. For me, I had one incident, and not incident, an incidence maybe.
An event. We'll just call it
an event in Las Vegas where we were kind of told that, kind of the get off the runway as quick as you can, and we just weren't expecting it. We had already briefed to take a high speed, not a 90-degree turn. It wasn't convenience. We landed on the south side of Las Vegas, and our FBO was on the very north side. So we're not going to lose any time or save any time. It was just what we had planned, and we had not planned on getting on the brakes or the reversers. And inadvertently, we got that call, and I was kind of between 2 taxiways. I was already going to the high speed, and unfortunately, we had to force a Southwest airliner behind us to go around because we took too long on the runway. But it is, I think, probably more common than you think, Matt.
Really?
Matt S.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So over to you, Matt C, for the next story, and we're sticking with United.
Yes, this continues on. Another new United, another Boeing story. This one, there's a video online. I don't know if Matt's going to play this as I read it out. But wheel falls off United Airlines Boeing 777 and crushes cars in San Francisco. This comes from The Independent also, from the UK. A United Airlines flight was forced to make an emergency landing in California after a tyre fell off mid-flight and damaged several cars in the parking lot in San Francisco, a car park as we would call it in the UK. The incident occurred on Thursday at around 11:24 a.m. local time after the Boeing 777 took off from San Francisco International Airport. The passenger plane with 235 passengers and 14 crew members was bound for Japan. Video of the incident showed one of the plane's 6 wheels detaching and dropping off as the plane was taking off. The plane was redirected to Los Angeles International Airport, where fire engines stood on standby. The plane landed safely and stopped approximately 2/3 of the way down of the runway, after which it was towed away, LAX airport officials said. No one was injured, spokesman Doug Yakel said in a statement. However, soon after the landing, it emerged that the loose tire fell onto an employee car park at San Francisco International Airport. Pictures from the scene showed several cars badly damaged by the impact, with the side and back window panes of a silver Toyota Corolla car smashed. The cars were unoccupied at the time and no one was harmed. An investigation has been launched into the incident, the Federal Aviation Administration's spokesperson, Tony Molinaro, said. United Airlines expressed gratitude to their pilots and flight attendants and said they will work with the owners of the vehicles damaged. We're grateful to our pilots and flight attendants for their professionalism in managing this situation, United Airlines said in a statement. We're also grateful to our teams on the ground who were waiting with a tug to move the aircraft soon after it landed, and to our teams in the airport who assisted customers upon their arrival. We will work with customers as well as the owners of the damaged vehicles in San Francisco to ensure their needs are addressed. Los Angeles Airport spokesman Doug Yakel said that the runway was briefly shut down after the passengers were evacuated to allow crews to clear debris. There was no further impact on operations at the airport, he added. Aviation experts have said that plane tyres coming loose is extremely rare and not indicative of a larger safety issue. In aviation, we never want to have a single point of failure if they can be avoided. And in this case, in point, Alan Price, a former chief pilot for Delta Airlines, told the Associated Press the remaining tyres are fully capable of handling the load. adding that this is a maintenance issue and not a manufacturing issue. The incident comes after a Boeing 757 aircraft in January lost its nose wheel while taxiing on the runway in Atlanta. That also prompted an FAA probe. So yeah, interesting story. So no one can decide whether it's tyre or wheel that's fall off. The press don't seem to make the distinction, but there's a significant difference because one could just be the tyre failed, the other one could be a much more significant mechanical failure.
Like I say, one is basically a big pile of rubber, the other has got some metal attached to it, essentially.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you played the video out while I was doing that, but yeah, it's quite interesting to see that fall off. Yeah, I don't know if you can tell from the video whether the hub was still on the aircraft or not. But
because I'm really fancy, look, Matt, you can have it in slow motion. Look, there you go.
There was actually some more pictures that they had online of it in the car park where it finally settled.
Oh, was there?
And it did, to me, look like the hub was there. It wasn't just a tyre with...
Right. Yeah. Well, lucky no one was injured. Can you imagine the inertia behind a heavy wheel like that? I mean, even if it was just a tyre, you can hardly lift these. You wouldn't be able to lift one of these on your own.
And there was significant height there as well, wasn't it, at the point at which it came off?
The energy in that tyre would be massive. I mean, you just watch racing, like a Formula One car, and if a tyre comes off, it goes a long time.
Yeah, it does.
There's so much energy. But the aviation expert they used was actually... the ex-chief pilot Delta, so that's fair enough.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that one was fair enough. Yeah,
yeah.
And he's exactly right. So the aircraft will have a procedure for landing with some sort of abnormal gear. On the A320, we only have two main gear each side, and we have a procedure for if we've lost a tyre on one side, etc. So there's just limitations. They would do things, I would guess, like get the aircraft as light as possible so they don't either dump fuel or burn it off, because obviously the less weight on the wheels, the better. And fortunately with the 777, they just had to do the dreaded 11-wheel landing. So, yeah.
Well, quite. And am I the only one who felt it really strange that they were focusing so much on apologising to the passengers? I mean, let's be honest. The passengers here were probably the inconvenienced the least by this incident. As you say, it's just like, oh no, there's only 11 wheels on this 12-wheel train, essentially, that's going to do that. So we'll have to, maybe do a couple of extra loops round before we touch down, just to be on the safe side. Although, let's be honest, 11 is probably enough for the job at hand. As I say, it's like, I'm sorry, but all the apologies and stuff should be going to, like, the airport and the people that, whose cars, like, employee car park where the vehicles were damaged. I mean, one side is it's totaled, isn't it, on one side. The other side has got the weirdest looking crazing I think I've ever seen as a result of
I saw that.
Yeah, I don't know what.
Like graffiti.
It's like, let me bring the picture up again.
Neil Lamont in the chat room makes a good point, as that would make an interesting conversation to have with your insurer.
Yes. I mean, they've already.
It sounds like the airline's going to pay.
Like I said, they've already gone to great lengths to sort of say that they're going to sort it out. It's this on this side here. I'm fascinated to know how that has happened. It's like this side. He says, talking about a picture on the radio, but the near side of the car looks like it's been hit by a wheel that's fallen off an aeroplane. There's no two ways about it. But on the off side of said vehicle, although because it's America, I'm saying that all the wrong way around. But we'll stick with what I know. On the off side there's all this weird like paint crazing and stuff like that. It's like
having a brother-in-law who's a car vehicle paint sprayer. That to me looks like lacquer is coming off the paint, off the bodywork,
which would imply heat. That's what I don't really understand.
Yes, it's sunny in Los Angeles.
Well,
might have already been like it.
Yes, that's true. Yeah,
that'll be the Southern California sunshine that's done that.
Right. Okay, that's fair enough. All right, then I'll shut up now.
I noticed it as well, and I thought it was weird. So it wasn't just you, Matt.
Move on to the next story for you, Matt Smith. I want to get this one right. That's the trouble having two Matts. No, honestly, no, Matt. Try and get through this story without falling asleep, please.
Oh. You've given this to the wrong person then, clearly. Right, here we go then. So the source is bbc.co.uk and the headline is Indonesia's Batik Air faces... So let's try that again, shall I? Take two, right? Nobody will notice. We're not live, are we? Indonesia's Batik Air faces probe after pilots fall asleep mid-flight. I mean, my days did start at 4:30 a.m., just saying. Indonesia is investigating local carrier Batik Air after both pilots were found to have fallen asleep for 28 minutes mid-flight. The two men, who have both been temporarily suspended, fell asleep during a flight on the 25th of January from one place to the capital in Jakarta. I'm not even going to try and say that. I want to say Sulawesi.
That's it, correct.
Oh, get me. One of them was reportedly tired from helping care for his newborn twins. The Airbus A320 briefly veered off course but landed safely with all 153 passengers and crew members unharmed. The 32-year-old pilot had told his co-pilot to take control of the aircraft about half an hour after takeoff, saying he needed to rest. The 28-year-old co-pilot agreed, according to a report from the Transport Ministry, but the co-pilot inadvertently fell asleep as well. According to the report, his wife had just given birth to 1-month-old twin babies and he was helping with childcare. Jakarta Air Traffic Control tried contacting the cockpit of Batik Air A320 after their last recorded transmission but received no response. That radio silence lasted 28 minutes until the lead pilot woke up and realised that his co-pilot had also fallen asleep. He also found that the aircraft had briefly veered off course. The pilots then responded to calls from Jakarta and landed the plane safely. Medical tests before the flight deemed that the men were fit to fly. Their blood pressure and heart rates were normal and alcohol tests came back negative. But while the pilots appeared to be fully rested, the tests failed to determine whether the quality of their rest was good. Aviation expert Alvin Lee told BBC Indonesian. Really? There's a BBC Indonesian? Fascinating. Authorities have now strongly reprimanded Batik Air over the incident, with Indonesia's head of air transport, M. Christy Endhar Murni, saying that the Batik Air should pay more attention to their crew's rest time. Batik Air has said it operates with adequate rest policy and that it is committed to implement all safety recommendations. In 2019, the same airline was forced to have an emergency landing after a pilot fainted. I mean, this isn't ideal, is it? And it's so what? Sorry, remind me what the aircraft was again.
I think it's it
was an A320.
Yeah.
So forgive my naivety, but how does this particular aircraft, Matt? Unlucky.
Because the airplane does everything for you.
Well, this is kind of like where.
He's back.
Yeah. Sorry, that's. But literally that though, because presumably a course had been set. How did this aircraft go like sort of veer off course essentially?
Well, it would depend on what mode they had the autopilot in. So if you've got a full route that you've put in, it's just going to follow that route. If you've got it in what we call nav mode, so it's following in navigation and it's following the route that's programmed in. If air traffic control, for example, had given them a heading to follow, you then take it out of the nav following mode and you just have it on a heading. So if they fell asleep while it was in a heading mode, it would have just stayed on that heading. That would be my guess.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so,
excuse the pun, but this is something worldwide that authorities need to wake up to. There's a huge global issue with pilot fatigue.
I need a sound effect. Yeah.
This is a massive problem worldwide. You know, this isn't something that we can say, oh, this is an Indonesian problem. You know, we see this in Europe. There's a big European Pilot Association covering this at the moment, going quite strong on this. We have problems in the US. Every corner of the world, there is issues with pilot fatigue, and it all comes down to money. You know, we have strict limitations, but that's what they are, they're limitations. But every part of the world, every airline now, they use them as targets, whereas before they were supposed to prevent, you know, if there was a massive delay, it was supposed to capture, like, okay, this is too much now. Whereas now, worldwide, they just see this as a target. Okay, this is how many hours we can make them work in a day, and so they use it as a target. And I think things need to change.
Yeah, we had a similar issue in the military also. We had a fatigue mitigation technique where you could take a combat nap. You just had to announce to the crew, which it sounds like the captain did, that said, "Hey, you've got control of the aircraft. It is accepted that you can say, I need to take a little cat nap. You've got the airplane. Wake me up in 15 or 20 minutes." To have both of them fall asleep for 28 minutes, how do I know, or how do they know that it was 28 minutes? Probably maybe control inputs from the flight data recorder, or maybe that's when they mode change or something happened on the FDR, or when they first talked to ATC after being queried. That's a long time. That's a long time for both pilots to be asleep. 28 minutes.
That's long-term fatigue there. They're both obviously accumulated their tiredness over, because we have short-term tiredness and you have long-term fatigue. So tiredness you can recover from by having a good sleep. Fatigue builds up over months or years, and takes a long time to get over. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's but how? I mean, how do we solve this? I guess that's the other question, though, isn't it? It's
The thing is, don't forget as well, you've not got a crew rest area on a 320.
No, but I don't think that's the issue, is it? That's not the issue.
It shouldn't be. No.
Yeah, there should be no need for it. Is sort of what I'm sort of saying, really. But what is the is it the testing that is wrong, if you like? That's not highlighting that. Is it lack of honesty from the pilots, because you don't want to admit that you're not fit to fly? I get that, because you're going to lose money and stuff like that. But is that where the issue is? Is essentially?
I think it lies with the authorities. The different authorities. We had the Colgan Air famous accident in America where they tightened up their limitations significantly. They probably made the first move globally of taking a bit more control over how much rest and how much lifestyle is affecting pilots. But it has to come from the top, because, the airlines at the end of the day, they're not being evil making money. That's what they're there for, So if it's legal and they're doing nothing wrong, then they're never going to just say, oh, let's not use as many pilots. So let's use more pilots, not work them as hard, because of course pilots are assets and money, and it saves money if you can have less pilots doing this, covering the same schedule.
Indeed.
So it's got to come from the top.
Neil Lamworn is saying, I love the sound of a combat nap. Does that come with combat slippers and a combat blanket?
Well, our flight suits were basically onesie pajamas. So.
Yeah, well, quite.
Yeah. 2014 is when here in the U.S. we had parts 117 go into effect for part 121 carriers. So that's not all commercial carriers, but that's all your major airlines and regional airlines. That was the first real significant look and solution to fatigue and fatigue management systems, risk management systems, where it's so complicated that there's even calculators you can go on. Most flight crew scheduling systems will calculate your flight duty periods, your rest periods, and all this stuff, make sure that you're legal. At the end of the day, it's still upon the crew member, both cabin crew and pilots, to make sure that you're legal to fly. We do have protections here, Matt, for MET-S to call fatigue. Most airlines do have a protection for the crews, especially on those quick turns or something like that, for you to say, you know what, I'm just too fatigued, and it is a no repercussions, no retribution type way of getting somebody else to cover for you.
Really, yeah. As I say, I mean, it's like in many ways I feel sorry for the captain who said, right, I'm going to have a little bit of a nap. Sort of got the request in early doors, where perhaps Mr. First Officer was probably a bit gutted he got there first. Maybe I don't know. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. It just I'm not worried by this story because I mean we've joked many a time, haven't we, about the fact that the Airbus will basically fly itself. It's just like it's one of those things. You stuck it on a heading, it'll keep going until you reach that heading. I don't know what it would do after that. What would it do after?
I mean,
that?
it's not unique. I mean, the 7.3 would do the same. It has the same autopilot, well, very similar autopilot systems. It's just the Airbus is fly-by-wire. Still have the same controls. You're still following nav on a 737. They also have equivalent heading modes and everything. So.
Yeah, but your Airbus chairs are more comfortable. You've got the tray. There's nothing in the way. You can put your feet up. I'm surprised there isn't a wake up every 30 minutes. Your chair massages your back or something.
That's clearly where they're going wrong, isn't it? There's no alert in the cabin to wake you up, or in the cockpit.
Yeah, and Aaron in the chat room says short haul flying is tiring, long haul is fatiguing, and that's very true. I flew for an airline once where we had up to 9 segments per day, and that was tiring, as he says. But also, I couldn't imagine sitting in an airplane for 14 hours like we were just talking about with these 747s, even though there's augmented crew.
They're just two different types of fatigue. Yeah, so short haul is just relentless. Just being physically pressurized and depressurized multiple times a day has an effect on your body. You tend to be getting up earlier and then switching to late. With long haul, the issue you have is changing time zones and long periods, dehydration for being in the air a long time. So, yeah, I think they both have their different effects.
Well, and also sort of mutual friend of ours who is cabin crew working both short haul and long haul routes, going east to west, moving time zones continuously, and it's obviously the same for cabin crew as it is for pilots as well. It is exhausting, I would imagine. It is fatigue that I hope I will never experience. And don't get me wrong, I'm tired. I mean, as we do this program, because of things that are going on, sort of like behind the scenes, if you see what I mean. But
it's also about. The other difference between cabin crew and pilots is the arousal level of your shift. So if you're a cabin crew, you imagine if you were feeling really tired, but you had to go into a room full of people and serve them and, go around talking to people, giving them their dinners or whatever they need, and you're always on your feet. Imagine also being really tired and say, right, you're going to go in this dark, quiet room with some white noise in the background, and you just got to sit in this seat for 11 hours. It's much harder to stay alert with a low arousal job like that. Touch wood when everything's going smoothly.
Very true, very true. Anyway, we could go on, but we should probably move on.
It's a good discussion. Next story, BBC.com. And if you fancy building a runway, why not build one in Antarctica? So this is all about how to fix a runway in Antarctica. Rothera airstrip on Antarctica's Adelaide Island is a dash of grey amid the seemingly endless expanse of snow and ice. It serves the largest British Antarctic facility, Rothera Research Station, a centre for biological research, and the 100 people who live and work there during the summer months. In the Antarctic summer, which lasts from October to February, that's different, isn't it? As the continent is in the southern hemisphere, the runway is surrounded by water. When the last smudge of yellow fades to grey as the sun dips below the horizon, the Antarctic winter sets in, and just 22 people can be found living at the station. In the months of darkness, persistent surface winds rush from snow-covered plateaus downwards towards the coast, and freezing temperatures as low as minus 89.2 degrees Celsius. Ow. Grip the land of ice. Now work has begun to modernise the 32-year-old airstrip. Bellis, who heads up the infrastructure project and the airstrip upgrade for the British Antarctic Survey, has been in Rothera for 3 weeks to supervise this unique construction challenge. Among the main difficulties are the Antarctic weather, the ever-changing landscape, One particular windy day, Maria Gonzalez Rico, associate at engineering firm Ramboll and lead designer on the Rothera runway project, walked along the runway to inspect some of the upgrade work. The runway is just 900 meters or 3,000 feet long, and the stroll, which would normally take just around 10 minutes, took more than half an hour due to the force of the wind blasting her backwards. Gonzalez Rico recently spent 6 weeks in Antarctica. This was probably the highlight of her career, she said, so far. She said it was quite a leap from building, say, a road in Britain to, obviously, the runway there in Antarctic. As the windiest, coldest place on the planet, Antarctica is not a natural habitat for humans. The continent is the only one on Earth with no indigenous population, and land can't sustain any wildlife bigger than a midgie, and the penguins, seals and other creatures all live in the waters surrounding the icy continent. However, there is a community of hardy scientists and support staff that fluctuates from around 5,000 in the summer months to just 1,000 in the winter. Their supplies are usually brought in by ship, but people tend to arrive by air. The extreme weather and challenging landscape do not allow for conventional runway construction. Snow and ice move and melt and freeze, and glaciers flow. Because of this, the runways in Antarctica are not your usual runways. Some are made from groomed blue ice, and some from compacted snow. Skiways allow for planes with skis instead of wheels. Many of Antarctica's landing strips rely on design and technology dating back to the 1950s, when Antarctic operations expanded rapidly. Since that time, polar exploration and research have continued to increase, along with the massive logistics operation that underpin them. For every day of the research, 9 days of logistics effort are required. In Antarctica, even basic logistical tasks like housing and feeding people can be a daily challenge, for example, when storage facilities are buried in snow. Now, the story does go on, but it does say here that as part of the Antarctic Infrastructure Modernisation Programme, or AIMP, which launched in 2017, the first thing the runway team worked on was upgrading the runway lighting, which is obviously very important, which is now more energy efficient than the old lighting and maintains safe, reliable operations into Rothera. Next, the team will begin to work resurfacing the runway, increasing its length by a whole 56 feet to 903 meters, or 2,963 feet, and also add a very important turn pad as well, which is also handy when you have a single runway like that. So it does explain here how they do the process with the runway, but what a mammoth task, not only to put this runway in place, but also, you know, you've got to work in those temperatures. That is incredible temperatures to work in, because I was imagine even in the summertime it's still relatively cold. Armando, it begs the question, have you ever flown into somewhere frosty?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask Antarctica. Frosty, yeah. We used to do exercise cold response every year. That's up in Evanes, Norway, and it was very, very cold, but it was on purpose so we could learn from the Norwegian Special Forces on how to operate in those kinds of environment. But honestly, the hardest thing was just walking on ice and taxiing the aircraft. Yeah. Everything else was pretty much the same, except under night vision goggles. At night, the terrain, everything's snow covered. It all blends in together. It's really hard to gain any depth perception. But you got used to that. That's the reason we trained. It's literally the hardest thing was getting to and from the airplane. Walking.
Yeah, absolutely. Always bring one skis. Is probably the answer to that one. I'm going to be very self-indulgent for a moment, if I may, Carlos, and just say say a very good, I think it's afternoon, where he is. A good afternoon to my friend Lucas, who is currently watching. He says, greetings from Bogota in Colombia. There you go. Look,
ooh,
nice.
Blimey.
I know. Like, well, posh man, innit?
Like global show this evening. Always. I was actually going to ask Matt C, need to say that. Obviously, the airline that you fly for, you fly into cooler climes. Is that more of a challenge, obviously, for you? Obviously, the runways where you're landing are probably paved or tarmac, but is it challenging?
Yeah, I mean, depends how you define challenging. Obviously, it's different to what we're used to. So the Scandinavian airlines that do it all the time, it won't be challenging to them, but it's certainly something that takes a bit more planning because we do it less often. And a lot of it comes down to the weather rather than the actual runway. So I fly to Keflavik in Iceland. And in the winter, if it's snowy, it's not such a problem. The issue up there is that it can often be windy. And when you've got snow on the runway, you have reduced limitations. So that can sometimes be a logistical issue rather than handling. I think we've spoken about this before when I was on and we was talking about an incident in Keflavik, and myself and Armando were saying actually landing on the runway is the easy bit because they spend a lot of time and effort on getting the runway suitable. It's taxiing normally to the ramp that's the issue because that's where it's much slipperier. And we're controlling our speed with the thrust that's coming out of the engines that you can't fully turn off. So that becomes where the issues are. That, you know, how even if you're at idle, you're blowing a lot of thrust out of the back. So ground control is more of the issue.
Yeah, gear braking not an option then, you know, like when I'm doing it, you know, I brake through the gears to take the speed off. Yeah. No,
not
exactly.
An option. And I think I mentioned it last time. I was sat there with the parking brake on, stationary, and then the 65, 70 mile an hour winds just suddenly started moving the aircraft at a sort of 45 degree angle to our right towards the terminal, thinking, well, I have nothing I can do about this. Yes. But I just briefed the first officer. I said, if it looks like we're going to make contact with the terminal, we'll just shut both the engines down before we get there. But luckily it only moved a few meters, but it was a little disconcerting.
You were essentially a passenger yourself for that moment.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Like, woo, let's go for the ride.
Exactly. Exactly. If you go to some places, so some places will clear the runways. Places Scandinavia, like when we do Lapland flights, things like that, they have so much snow and it's so cold that they don't clear the runway. They'll just compact it, so you actually just land on the snow, which is quite grippy, much to many people's realization. Snow's quite grippy as long as it's not melting. So it's cold enough, you can actually grip quite well on the snow. Again, Armando probably has more. I've never done that. I've done it once into Prague, actually, but nothing significant. Yeah. There we go.
Armando, you want to add any? No, nope. He's good.
No, all good.
All good. Right, so we're going to take a little... well, we don't normally do commercial breaks on this show, but just for a change this week, as it's slightly aviation related, we are going to take a commercial break.
I've flown with US Airlines and the girls are really nice. And those beautiful Far Eastern girls do splendid things with rice. Ooh.
German girls are so correct, and the planes are never late. But there's only one girl we want to see as we reach the departure gate.
I wish they all could be Caledonian. I wish they all could be Caledonian. I wish they all could be Caledonian girls.
British Caledonian, Airline of the Year.
I mean, I really don't know where to begin with that. Oh my goodness me! I mean, wow.
Do you know what the bizarre thing of it is? I can remember flying British Caledonian, and I mean that's how old I am.
Yeah, you are old. Yeah.
But what? And honestly, that advert is.
I mean, if ever there was an example that shall I say, colours the phrase perfectly, they don't make them like they used to, that would be it. Oh my goodness me, I really do.
I think we should make these a regular feature.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, yeah, we should do, actually. Yeah, well,
if we can find them.
If anyone finds any, they should send them in.
Yeah, there is some way to find them. We'll have to do that, because that is, honestly, Oh, well.
Horrendous, I think, is the word you're looking
Yeah.
for.
In the golden days.
Nostalgic.
Nostalgic is a
Nostalgic,
word.
yeah.
Indeed. Now, listen, unfortunately, we're going to need to lose poor Matt. As I say, Matt, bless him, has very kindly joined us, but it's time for him to stretch out and get a little bit more comfortable. So thank you so much for your time this evening, Matt. Speedy recovery, please.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm afraid I have to go. I've reached my limitation, I think. So I'm going to go and rest up. And always a pleasure to be on the show. Thanks for inviting me on. And yeah, look forward to being back on again soon.
Yeah, catch up with you soon. Yeah.
Good to see you, Matt. Take care.
Take care.
Cheers, everyone.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
So, Nick, you have got story 10, and something I think is for a bucket list for those of you who fancy travelling somewhere nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I came across this one and sort of immediately added it to my my travel list. So yeah, this one is coming from secretnyc.co, and this is the headline is the ultimate surf vibes are coming to this rooftop infinity pool overlooking the JFK runway. So the TWA pool, which is home to a retro airplane turned cocktail lounge, has a pool bar, rooftop pool, and observation deck that is perfect for the weekend's weather. So the rooftop pool is actually open all year round, and it's heated, and it's located at JFK Airport in Aero Saarinen's landmark 1962 TWA Flight Center, which was a high glamour and futuristic airline gate until it closed in the 2000s. Now it boasts ultra-quiet guest rooms, restaurants, and lots of vintage airline components. Over the years, it's opened a retro roller rink, bumper cars, pickleball court. What's pickleball?
Oh, what now?
Pickleball.
And most recently, a curling rink. We might need to refer that question to our American correspondent. But its most notable amenity definitely remains its infinity rooftop pool that stays open all year long. And though there's not a day you can't go for a splash, this year's summer iteration will transport you into the classic 1960s surfing documentary Endless Summer, which officially launches on May 26th. The pool offers panoramic views of one of the biggest runways at JFK, over 12,000 feet long. So you can watch jets take off into the clouds as you sip on a drink by the water. And the pool is purified every 30 minutes, whereas a standard pool is every 6 hours. It's heated to 95 degrees, presumably Fahrenheit, for colder months, so it's more like a jacuzzi. It serves an inventive menu of aviation-inspired bites and cocktails, like the jet fuel with cucumber mint vodka, Aperol, fresh lemon juice, and muddled watermelon. The control tower sour with amaretto, fresh lemon, and orange juices, simple syrup, and Angostura bitters. Reservations for the pool are not required until May 26th. The TWA hotel guests can use the pool in the winter months free of charge, but non-hotel guests can go for a dip for $25. Admission to both hotel and non-hotel guests include entry to the pool and observation deck, in addition to seating at the pool bar. So yeah, what do you reckon, guys? Bit of a get together there for the team, I think.
I just like the idea of sitting in that kind of infinity-looking pool and having that great view.
Yeah, cocktail in hand. I can't think of a better day, to be honest.
So Armando's going to explain to us about pickling balls.
Has pickleball not made it to the UK? That's a real question.
No, I don't think so.
Oh my gosh. Pickleball's been around since the 60s here in the US, from like the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon. Oh, right. Like what's the lawn bowling and the cricket thingy that you guys do?
We probably invented it. It's just that you guys gave it another name.
No.
A bit like rounders that you insist on calling baseball.
No, this is Pickleball is somewhere between tennis and table tennis and wiffle ball. All ages, all abilities can play pickleball. It's basically the inside of a regular tennis court, so you don't even have to run that much. We have pickleball bars here in the U.S. Like, it is actually actually Chicken and Pickle, I think, is in Wichita, where we go to recurrent training. I think it's Chicken and Pickle. Anyway, it's literally just a bar with maybe a dozen pickleball courts. So you go drink, have some chicken, play some pickleball. Yeah, it's pretty popular here in the U.S.
Another good comment from Neil Lamb there, but I'm not sure we can play it.
No.
So,
No,
yeah, I'm gonna have to try pickleball. I think I'm gonna add that to my list, Armando.
I'm intrigued. Yeah.
You can learn it in about 15 minutes.
Excellent.
There we go. There we go.
Get your flights booked now.
Right.
All kidding aside, that TWA hotel is on my bucket list. I may just pop up to New York just to stay there.
Just to see
It's a beautiful building.
absolutely.
It's a real iconic building. It's really, really beautiful place.
I think didn't Steph do that?
Yeah.
Oh, probably.
I think she went
Oh,
up to
probably.
They've got
Between
Constellation
marathons.
there, haven't
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, me and you, Matt, know someone who's also been through there as well.
Do we?
Yeah, Skippy.
Really?
Yeah.
He's tight as a badger's what's it? I can't imagine
he sent me loads of pictures when he went through there, and
Yeah, I bet he did.
the consolation and stuff just to wind me
Yeah,
up. So,
yeah. I'm sure that was very successful. Yeah.
Oh yes, very much so. But there we go, bringing the commercial news segment to a close. But coming up next, we've got our second instalment from the drone summit that we went to a few weeks ago. It seems like ages ago now. Over in Dublin. And following on from the recent drone summit, here is our interview with Brendan Keeley, who is the chair of the Technology Ireland, the tech industry's largest and most influential business organisation. He is the co-founder and the CEO of ThinScale Technology, a leading Irish software company. Now, I just want to apologise as well for the slight dropout in audio in parts of this interview. This was down to the sheer amount, as Matt Smith knows, of drones that were flying in and around the frequency spectrum of the radio mics that we were using.
Yes.
So it did make things very challenging.
Indeed.
Didn't it, Matt?
It certainly
But,
did, yeah, absolutely.
Let's go over to Dublin.
So I'm here with Brendan Kiley at the Drone Summit 2024. Brendan, what do you do? What is your job?
So I'm here in my capacity as Chairman of Technology Ireland, and Technology Ireland is the largest representative organisation for tech companies, from the large multinationals down to startups in Ireland, and we also represent the tech industry to Europe as well. So we're part of the wider organisation IBEC, which is the Irish Business and Employers Confederation. And that's my part-time job. In my other life, I'm CEO and co-founder of a company called ThinScale Technology. So I was asked to do the opening remarks here at the Drone Summit, and I was delighted to do so. And I think one of the key things was, identifying, there's like a Venn diagram between the tech industry and the drone industry, and particularly when you think around data analytics, AI, all of these pieces are going to become critical in terms of how this industry moves forward. And in my remarks, I was reflecting on the need for this industry to represent itself to government in a different way, in a more strategic and broad way, laying out a vision for the next 20 years of what this industry could be, both in the UK and in Ireland. And I think it has huge potential. But the bedrock of any solid industry is a solid relationship between regulators and the main players, albeit it'll be fractious at times. That's the nature of it. But I think when regulators are truly honest with you and off the record, they desire good relationships with companies to understand how they can bring an industry forward from a governmental and policy perspective. So so that was kind of my boring opening remarks. Not sexy, it's like a relationship. Every relationship has to have rules, so my wife tells me anyway. so I tend to ignore the rules, but it is a critical thing. And I think this is a fledgling industry because everything changes so fast. So you sit down with government now, you do a document in 6 months, it could be out of date. So there's a disconnect there, and I don't think that is just in Ireland. I see it at an EU level. I see it in the tech industry with the level of regulation that's coming through, the AI Act coming down from the EU recently. And no matter whether you're in the EU or not to stray into that, this will be the rule book around AI, on this side of the water, and it will be very similar in the US. So that's one example of where, that tech lobbying and that tech engagement, is having a huge impact on the drone industry. So I would say, in the next 12 months, 49% of the world's population are going to go to the polls. It's quite a number, and I think there's an opportunity there at a European level and indeed at an Irish level to communicate how this industry can be brought forward and to really push forward.
So I have to ask, Brendan, do you own yourself a drone?
No, but my brother does, and he lets me fly it from time to time. No, my brother is very involved in this industry as well, so that was part of the reason I was voluntold to be here today, but I've really enjoyed it.
But you're quite happy to fly a drone?
Yeah, I wouldn't do it on camera, Carlos. But certainly, the kids have two of the smaller ones in the house that they like to torment the cat with, and so it's fun, but it's also business, And I think we still haven't fully gotten our heads around, in every industry, they're still working out how this technology can be used, and we're almost seeing jobs that were too dangerous and all those too dirty, too confined. We're still working out how all that can be done, and it's part of a complex but exciting future.
I have to say, we were driving through Dublin yesterday, and you've got the likes of Google, their headquarters, Meta, here in Dublin.
Across the street.
It's becoming, to me, having been to Dublin a few times in the past,
sure,
it's completely changed since I last came out here, probably sort of 4, 5, 6 years ago when I last came out here. The tech industry out here in Dublin it seems to be huge.
It's enormous, yeah, it is absolutely enormous. And I think people, the tired trope of they're only here for the tax, but they forget that we have the same accounting system as the US. We're the only English-speaking member of the Euro. Although we're working on a strong regulatory frameworks, very good relationships in Brussels. All of these things really matter. But I also think there is a very high level of skilled workforce, and that used to be just Irish people. Now there's a flow from across Europe into and out of Ireland on a regular basis. It's funny, where you see that the most is at the school gate, with your kids' friends, and the Googlers and the LinkedIners and the Facebookers, and they come for a couple of years, they move on to California, wherever, they climb that corporate ladder. So no, it has been huge. It is huge for the Irish economy, and we're very focused, I think, in Ireland as a country on developing that relationship in ways that not only will it continue, but it will take advantage of the new tech that's coming, the complexity that's coming our way, and getting our heads around understanding what does that mean for us as an economy. We strayed into the political, Carlos.
I know. So before we wrap up, what's the sort of future? What have you got for yourself? Have you got any big sort of plans you'd like to do? Anything you'd like to?
Well, from a business perspective, we have an endpoint security. So everybody thinks security is all about the cloud, etc. But security begins and ends at the endpoint. So we're everything at the endpoint, and from app delivery all the way through to management, and then locking down those endpoints. So that's very exciting. We've just launched a new cloud, thinscaletechnology.com, if you're having a look. And we just launched a new cloud and a host of new products. On a personal level, very excited from a Technology Ireland perspective. We have 3 elections coming up in Ireland, a number of referendums, so we've local, European and national elections in the next 12 months. And there's a lot of discussions to be had, because really the framework for the next 10 years will be set out through that election. and it's an important time.
Yeah, for Ireland, yeah, definitely. Well, I'm going to say thanks for coming on the show. It's been great to chat to you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, thank you.
I can't believe that was a couple of weekends ago already. It was such an amazing sort of busy 3 days, but absolutely amazing.
Yeah, very, very, very memorable. We made some great friends there, some very, very good friends there, and connections as well. I think they were all very impressed, I think, Matt, with how, I think one of them commented on how professional we all looked while we were there.
Right, okay. That must have been while I was elsewhere, was it? Right, yeah.
Is that when you were drying off?
Well, it was either when I was drying off. Most of the time I was essentially holding the coats because obviously we had a lot of equipment there and there was a large site to cover. So I was quite often the one looking after the various sort of bits and pieces and waiting for phone calls about Nev needing batteries and things like that. So it was just like... Yeah, it was very professional because I was holding the coats. That's essentially what was happening.
Yeah, it was a good few days there, and
it was.
I think we definitely did sample the local delicacies while we were there as well. Yes.
Neil Landwarner had a good question in the chat room about how drone technology is going to replace traditionally low time pilot jobs like pipeline patrol and aerial survey. That is very much a thing that I used to, when I was flying that DC-3, that was a geospatial survey mission. And since then, that was almost 4 years ago now, that technology has all been replaced by drone technology, the high-end drones, with 8 or 10 motors. And we were doing LiDAR, we were doing hyperspectral, we were doing wide area motion imagery. That can all be done much, much cheaper with a unmanned aerial vehicle. So and those were 10-hour missions at a time that I was flying. So we would take off and we knew we were going to take off, go fly for 10 hours, and that's all done with drone technology now in just a space of 4 years.
One of my friends works for Ordnance Survey here in the UK and does exactly that, where they're doing aerial surveying, flying, and the only reason to be brutally honest, that he's still got and doing this photography role that he's doing is because they haven't yet been able to cram the technology required to do said work and get those high detailed photos into a drone that will fly for more than about sort of like 5 minutes. And that's literally the only reason why, is just because the equipment at this stage is just too big to attach to a decent sort of drone that isn't the size of an actual aircraft. But he's under no illusions. His time is numbered before a drone is capable of doing what he needs to do. So he's just making the most of it while he still can. Bless him. Oh dear.
I think this summertime, Matt, we need to.
I've got one. You want to have a go?
We need to. Well, I don't know. I think I'll pass on that because I don't want to break it. But I think we should go out and do some sort of filming or some shots with the one that you've got.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
That'd be good.
Absolutely. Yeah. As long as we're nowhere near an airport, that'll be fine.
We'll still go to airports. Yeah.
No, sounds good. Yeah.
Right. It is time to hand things over to Armando.
All right, we got 11 minutes time on target, so we got to speed you on up through the military. Matt, hit that button.
What's up, Bogies 13550, Angel 16, heading 340. Okay. 100 St. Bogies.
All right, everybody's favorite government and military topic, money. So the United States Air Force is requesting a whopping $188 billion in its fiscal year 25 budget request. Part of that is the retirement of 250 aircraft, according to officials that released their statements this week. Last Friday, in a briefing with reporters, Kristen Jones, who's performing the duties of the Air Force Undersecretary, said that the service's budget would grow by about 1.6% compared to the fiscal year 24 budget of $185.1 billion. So the Air Force procurement account is probably one of the most noticeable areas to take a hit under this new kind of budget that they're requesting, dropping from a requested $30 billion to $29 billion, just a $1 billion drop from fiscal 24 to 25. According to the officials, that fund is going to buy a total of 90 aircraft, as well as a range of some munitions and other equipment. They're looking at procuring 60 fighter jets, that's 42 F-35s, and 18 F-15EXs, which we have talked about a couple times, but we don't really talk about the F-15 and how capable it continues to be, and how it's a really good airplane that is continued to be manufactured. But also, as they're recapitalizing some of that money to get some KC-46s still on the on the ordering books. Anyway, so that about $3 billion of that is going for 15 tankers. $350 million of it is going to the B-21 Raider, that stealth bomber that they're just unveiled last year. But in addition to all of this, they are looking to divest about 250 aircraft. Probably most notable is the A-10. They've been trying to kill the A-10 for I don't even know how many years. Last year, they were approved for 42 A-10 retirements. The Air Force is looking to retire 56 additional A-10 Warthogs this year, with a goal of clearing out the entire inventory by the end of the 2020s. F-22 Raptors, the Block 20 aircraft, so some of the first ones off the line, those are getting divested, going to the boneyard. Maybe they'll end up in a museum somewhere. But I just thought it was interesting that some of the aircraft that are being retired as part of this budget request are 32 F-22s, 26 F-15Es, 11 F-16Cs, 65 F-15s, 56 A-10s, as I just said, 22 T-1s, that's a Hawker Beechjet trainer, 12 Black Hawks, 6 C-130s, 2 CV-22s. Oh, they're already going to the boneyard. And then 16 KC-135s. So they're looking at retiring quite a few. 250 airplanes is quite a few airplanes when they're only buying 90, which is just an interesting move. But, they know what they're doing, especially with this sort of near-peer fight that they're talking about with Russia and China. So I just thought it was interesting that 250 aircraft in 1 year that's a big number to retire.
It is, isn't it? I mean, however you sugarcoat it is, the writing's on the wall, literally.
That's also a lot of desert space to find to park these aircraft up, Armando.
True.
Are you eyeing where you're going to go camp and start pulling parts off of airplanes?
Yeah, Neil Landmore makes a good point in there that I'll be watching the auction sites now.
Yeah, of course you will.
I'm going to nab myself a piece of CV-22.
Oh, well, I mean, these are I think I only know of one that was retired, so retiring 2 from the Air Force. The Air Force, oh shoot, I think we have 20-something of them, so retiring 2, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Right, plane tags. Right, anyway, moving on to the next story. Nick, you've got this one.
Yeah, this is quite an interesting one. This is from the Korea Jung-ang Daily, and the headline is the suspect list grows in KF-21 fighter jet technology leak. So police are expanding their investigation into a potential leak of Korean fighter jet technology by an Indonesian engineer as the list of suspects grows. During the police's investigation into the Indonesian engineer, first referred to the police in February, authorities found evidence that another suspect was involved in the alleged theft of technology regarding the KF-21 fighter jet, according to an exclusive report by the Jung-ang Ilbo, an affiliate of the Korean Jung-ang Daily, citing multiple officials familiar with the situation. On February 22nd, the Defense Acquisition Program Administration requested a police investigation into an Indonesian engineer suspected of attempting to steal technologies related to the domestically developed KF-21 fighter jet after conducting a preliminary joint probe with the National Intelligence Service and the Defense Counterintelligence Command. The Indonesian engineer was posted to work at Korea Aerospace Industries, the manufacturer of the jet, under development with partial funding from Indonesia. The engineer was caught in January attempting to take a USB storage device with classified data on the jet, according to the Defense Program Administration. While analysing the classified data, police found that another Indonesian engineer had actively participated in gathering the stolen data. The National Intelligence Service and Defence Counterintelligence Command conducted a preliminary investigation and determined that the USB device an initial suspect tried to smuggle contained between 4,000 and 6,600 data files. The USB data is also suspected to contain the 3D modelling program for the fighter jet, a core technology. Police are still investigating. So, so I did a quick Google on this, and it actually, I don't know if I'm being a little bit uncharitable. It kind of looks like an F-35 knockoff. It's kind of very similar, and obviously there are very good reasons for doing that if you want to mimic, I guess, for want of a better word, the flight characteristics of a particular aircraft, and if you know that a particular aircraft has very good capabilities, then there would be good reasons for copying or being inspired by, you might want to say. So interesting that I don't know whether any money changed hands or what happened there, but clearly some guys got a bit tempted.
Yeah, I think if you look at all the up and coming, sixth generation fighters for sure, but certainly some of the fifth generation fighters that are, the KF-21 is technically a fifth generation fighter with some fourth generation technology. All the new airplanes look like they're, looking, the Chinese, the Russians, the US, Koreans, the Indians are all producing kind of a similar looking jet with similar capabilities. The South Korean Air Force they're replacing F4s and F5s with the KF-21. So This is a pretty significant leap forward in their own capabilities. Yeah. But just goes to show, you can try to lock it down, but somebody's always trying to get your mother's maiden name.
Quite.
Yes. So, moving on. Next story. The Aviationist. This one comes from. Moving to the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy as well for this one. Incredible photos of the HMS Prince of Wales and its F-35Bs under the Aurora Borealis. So the HMS Prince of Wales Carrier Strike Group is currently taking part in exercises Steadfast Defender 2024. From February the 24th to March the 4th, the HMS Prince of Wales aircraft carrier took part in the UK-led exercise Joint Warrior 24-1, held in the North Sea and Norwegian Sea as part of the larger Steadfast Defender 2024 exercise. During the exercise, the ship led for the first time the United Kingdom's Carrier Strike Group, which also includes ships from 4 NATO countries. At the end of the exercise, the official social media accounts of the CSG released some incredible photos shot as the ships and crews were treated to an impressive display of the Aurora Borealis. My word, that is an incredible picture. Wow. For those of you watching in the world of YouTube, that is amazing. Totally put off there with that now. The Aurora Borealis, also known as the Northern Lights. It's a natural light display caused by the collision of solar wind and magnospheric charged particles with the high-altitude atmosphere and thermosphere. Steadfast Defender 24 is NATO's largest military exercise since the Cold War, involving 90,000 troops from all 31 NATO allies and invitee Sweden as well. The exercise, which stretches from January to May, is split into 2 overlapping parts, with each including a range of associated exercises hosted by different countries, such as Joint Warrior 24-1. The exercise marks a historic moment for NATO, showcasing transatlantic unity, strength, and determination in the face of evolving security challenges. In fact, following Russia's full-scale invasion of the Ukraine back in 2022, allies have further strengthened NATO's deterrence and defence, creating the most comprehensive defence plan since the end of the Cold War, with the alliance also increasing in size with new countries joining. Steadfast Defender 24 is the first large-scale NATO exercise to put these new defence plans into action, according to the press statements. Those pictures.
This one here, I think, I left it up for quite a long time, so apologies if you're bored of it. But this one, I swear the Northern Lights are following the contours of that aircraft. It's just like, oh, isn't it stunning?
I actually threw in an Easter egg for our chat room audience. I don't think anybody has noticed it. Matt, go to the next picture after this one. Does anybody recognize that picture?
Oh, my word, that's from the film.
Think of it.
Oh, I literally watched it about a month ago.
1980, Kirk Douglas.
Yes. Oh.
No, we're not going anywhere, Carlos, until you've remembered the name of the film.
This is going to make for riveting audio.
Yeah.
It is,
come on.
Oh, God, it's the blooming film.
9 minutes, just saying.
Experiment.
9 minutes. That's all we have.
All right. Well, we still got another military story. This is from the final countdown. The final countdown, where the USS Nimitz, I think, gets transported through time back to 1941 Pearl Harbor with Kirk Douglas and Martin Sheen.
Oh, that's some kind of weird lightning portal-y thing, is it? Right, okay.
Bill got it.
Yeah,
in the chat room.
Thank goodness for that. Put him out of his misery.
I thought those Northern Lights pictures were so awesome, but immediately I was like, wait a minute, doesn't that look a lot like the plot to Final Countdown?
Absolutely. Maybe it was indeed a future event.
Yeah, it's a really well put together film. Very well put together film. Armando, you've got the last one.
Yeah, bringing up the rear here. Unfortunately, a tornado was said to damage some of the buildings at the National Museum of the Air Force there in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That was just last week. There were some images that were shared online by the 88th Air Base Wing showing the extent of some damage there. It was an early morning tornado. February 28th is when this happened. But according to the first reports, the Air Force's Restoration Hangar number 4 and several other buildings at Wright-Pat were damaged in this tornado. The Civil Engineer Group went out there and they tried to assess the damage. No injuries. Colonel Travis Pond, the commander of the 88th Air Base Wing, said that their initial assessment from this morning's storm is that the damage is isolated to the southern side of Area B, and the initial focus right now, of course, was safety and damage assessment. But he lauded their security forces, their fire department, civil engineer. Matt's got some pictures here to throw up here, but in the images you can see there's an F-104 and there's a T-33 that was parked outside the hangar that were pretty significantly damaged. I think there was another F-15, an A, inside the restoration hangar. I found some other pictures from the U.S. Air Force, the 88th Air Base Wing's social media accounts that show what was being restored inside that hangar. But you can see from the pictures there's some pretty significant damage, at least to the aircraft that were sitting outside. You know, that F-104 and the T-33, and there was a bunch of parts that were crated up, engines, radial engines for restoration. These buildings are not small, as you guys know. You know, these are pretty significant hangars. And here in some of the upcoming pictures, you'll actually get an idea of how big the hangar is because of how many aircraft are actually inside of it. But again, this is not an usually open to the public hangar. This is one of their restoration hangars where they eventually get the aircraft either out on sticks or into the museum somewhere.
Not good. But
just a part of living in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth?
Well, that brings the military to a close, my friends, with 5 minutes to spare.
Yes,
Look
let's
at that.
start to wrap up the show then. So, social media, where can you find us on the old socials? Well, you can search for us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search for Plain Talking UK. That WhatsApp number, if you want to send a message and wake me up in the early hours of the morning, it's +44
Do it.
757 22 49166. You can send us your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. Email us, podcast@plaintalkinguk.com, and the website where you can find out more about the team. It's all the w's.plaintalkinguk.com for that. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well to be notified when we're live broadcasting the show, as we have been doing this evening. Also on the website you can find the store where you can purchase yourself a PTUK t-shirt. We had a few more new ones delivered a few weeks ago, so we've got some various different sizes of t-shirt.
Ooh, fresh stock.
You can buy yourself, treat yourself to a PTUK t-shirt for the new year. We've also got the mugs on there.
You know it's March, right?
Well, I know the year's just flying by.
Yeah,
and also special military grey mugs as well. You can find all the details for them on the website, along with details on how to become a Patreon and donate to the show as well, because that all helps, especially to get the content like we did from Dublin this year. So thanks very much for that indeed. And that is about it. Quick round robin. Here we go. Matt, what are you doing next week?
Radio and work.
Nick, what are you doing next week?
Oh, well, I've just seen a notification from SpaceX that they're going to be attempting the third launch of their Starship tomorrow.
Ooh.
So keep an eye on the YouTubes for that, because
definitely.
Well, it'll either be really cool or it will go bang again. So place your bets now. Either way, it'll be really cool.
Yeah.
Armando, what's going on in the world of Armando next week?
Not a whole lot. Flying the biplane. I got a trip next week on the Hawker. But I should be back in time for the show next Wednesday. So.
Excellent. Well, that is about all we've got time for. Episode 494 of the show. Big thanks to all the chat room for joining us tonight. Massive thanks to all you guys and girls in there. And also thanks to the awesome people who listen to the show as an audio podcast as well. Thanks for downloading the show as you do each week. We really appreciate that. So from me in the home studio, from Matt in the PTUK Master Suite studios, and from Nick in his home studio, and from Armando in his studio as well. And of course, Matt C, who was on earlier. Big thanks to everyone. Take care. Have a great rest of the week and weekend, and we'll see you all next Wednesday. Say goodbye, Matt.
Goodbye, Matt.